I'm now going to introduce Samantha Skelly. And she is a coach and entrepreneur and breathwork expert. She is the founder of Hungry for Happiness and just wrote a book. So you're going to have to go check that out. But we are going to have a deep dive into her journey, how she started what she's doing right now, her connection to breathwork, food, body image, and then we're also going to talk about healing and how to heal yourself and how you healing, what that means for your relationship with others and the community, especially now because there's so many different dynamics in our community from media and everything that's shifting and evolving. So Sam's going to help us navigate that evolution. So Sam, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel so grateful, Vanessa. Thank you.
It's so awesome. Okay, well, let's dive right in. Sam, how did you get into breathwork?
So I grew up as a dancer and a child actress. So my entire life was spent either on stage or in front of a camera. And I can remember being 12 years old and lying in the bathtub, and I loved having baths when I was younger because I'm like, I just want to like get away from the world. And I have extroverted tendencies, but I really think I'm an introvert at heart because I just love being alone. So I was in the bath, like iced chai tea latte, which I always made. And I can remember this one moment looking down at my body and being like, I am fat. Like I'm like, I hate my body. I don't.
How old were you in this moment? 12.
Mm-hmm. And so that was the first memory I have of hating my body and feeling disconnected from it. And it didn't manifest into disordered eating and eating disorders until I was about 18 years old. So when I was 18, I moved to Australia with one of my best friends. And I can remember deciding to go on a diet. At that point in time, I stopped dancing and I stopped acting. And I thought to myself, well, if I don't diet, then I'm going to gain all this weight and I'm not going to be lovable. And I had this tie between how I looked was how much love I could accept or receive. And furthermore, I was loved for what I did, not who I was. And so growing up in entertainment and dance and acting, every single time I like booked a role or I came first in my dance competition, it was like, wow, you're so amazing. You're so amazing. And so when I stopped all of that, it was like the instant gratification and the validation was like done. So that in conjunction with my body image issues, I spun myself into this really dark and depressing place. I called it my diet depression days, where I was on over 50 diets in less than 4 years. And every single day I was fighting with food, fighting with my body. And I ended up in the hospital because I wasn't feeding myself enough, which was just so crazy, like to drive myself to the place of feeling so unworthy and so unhealthy that I wasn't eating. And so I thought that I would learn.
Now, I have some questions. We're going to dive real deep here because at that time when you end up having to go to the hospital, did you know you looked unhealthy? What was going on in your mind at that time? Were you admitted because somebody else brought you there? Did you pass out? Like what happened?
I just like passed out because I was undernourished. And my boyfriend at the time brought me to the hospital and I was like, what happened? He's like, you like weren't eating enough and you like passed out. I'm like, wait, what? And like, I no idea. And so I told my parents at the time, I'm like, oh, I just was trying to save money because I was living in Australia and I was like backpacking. I was just trying to save money. But the truth was like, I was just in such a battle with food in my body that I was not eating enough.
Did you think you looked good at that time? Or was it never enough?
It was never enough. It was never enough. And I didn't look anorexic, but I was just not giving my body what it needed. And plus being 18 years old in Australia, drinking all the time. So unhealthy, right? So it's like, yeah, vodka was my literal diet. So I was just so undernourished and so depleted. And so I then got out of the hospital but kept restricting and kept, being addicted to exercise and things of that nature. I would just do tons of jumping jacks before I went to bed so that I wouldn't, have consume more calories than I worked out. I was trying to always remain in that deficit. So that went on for 4 years. And during that time period, I tried to heal emotional eating with dieting. I'm like, well, if I just have structure and I just do this and that and the other, then I'll get over this. Because I really wanted to stop the battle with food. I just didn't know how. And I was doing all the wrong things. And so people were saying, have a food journal, have this, have that, the other. And I'm like, this is just making it worse.
Mm.
So about 10 years ago, I was living back in my hometown, Vancouver, Canada, and I was reading Elizabeth Gilbert's Eat, Pray, Love. And so I read the chapter where she went to Bali and went to that healer. And I was like, Mom, I think that's what I'm going to do. So I went to Bali and I found this healer that she talks about in the book. He comes out and he has this beautiful broken English, and he just pokes me with a few sticks. And he was like, your brain's broken. Is essentially what he said. And he's like, you think too much. I'm like, I know. And it was a time in my life where I either had like extreme anxiety or I felt numbness. There wasn't really much sort of in between that. And so I ended up going back to the meditation center where I was close to where I was staying. And at that point in my life, I struggled with meditation. I still do. And I'm like, I can't meditate. Like, but everyone's saying like meditation is going to be the thing to help me, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I go there to go and take a class, and I ended up being late for the class. But the next class on the agenda was a breathwork class. And so I'm sort of like looking at, I'm like, breathwork. I'm like, what the heck is that? And at that point in time, I don't even think I had like a smartphone to be able to Google what breathwork is. So I was like, oh, whatever, I'll just do it. So I walk up the stairs and there's this man dressed all in white. He looked like Jesus. And he came up to me and he was like, are you ready to go on the ride of your life? That's what he said. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, you are going to experience feelings in your body that you've never felt before. You are going to experience an entire range of emotions through just using your breath. And I was like, no. I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, the only things I can feel in my body are numbness and anxiety. There's really not much else. So anyway.
You could identify it as a numbness.
What's that?
You could identify it as like a numbness and nothing.
Yeah, it was like a nothing. People would say, what does your intuition say? And I'm like, I literally don't know what you're talking about. Like I had no idea. That expansion and contraction in the body, I'm like, I have no idea what that is. So he teaches this breath pattern, and we lie down, and within minutes, my entire body was feeling so alive, so activated. There was so much sensation, and it wasn't anxiety. Like, I know what it feels like to be on the brink of anxiety where I feel like I'm going to friggin' break down. It wasn't that. It was like this, just aliveness, connection to everything, connection to nature, to the sky, to my higher self. Like, it was insane. I'm like, what is going on? And so I kept breathing in this way, and I was breathing for 3 hours, but it felt like 15 minutes.
Wow.
And so I woke up and I was like, what the actual F just happened? What's going on? And I got on my scooter and I raced back to my hotel room where I was staying, and I started researching all about breath work. I'm like, what is this? How was I able to feel high off simply just using my breath? And at that point in time, 10 years ago, there was barely any information about breath work. And even still, even today, you know, it's something that people kind of sort of are beginning to realize, but not to the degree that it should be because it's so powerful. So I just started using my breath to be able to heal my body. And through using breath work, I was able to identify the difference between what is an emotional hunger cue, what is a physical hunger cue, what is my intuition? What's the difference between intuition and fear? I began to develop a level of intelligence viscerally that I had completely numbed out before. And so I was able to actually heal myself through breath work, through being in my body, through embodiment. Whereas before I was putting Band-Aids on bullet wounds, trying to do all of the things to heal, and it wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And so I started Hungry for Happiness through my own journey of healing myself. I just began, coaching people for free. And then I started, taking on one-to-one clients, and then group programs led to retreats, led to more group programs. And then it kind of just exploded. And we've been in business now for nearly nine years now.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's been the most beautiful journey. And so I was teaching my students how to use breath work to heal from emotional eating, and it was working so well. And then 2 years ago, through channeled divine guidance, God, spirit, whatever it is, was like, you need to create a company specifically just for breath work. And so that's how Pause Breathwork came to be. So it was sort of on the wings of the Hungry for Happiness stuff. But it's just been the most incredible journey. And my mission is to mainstream breathwork, and, you know, through the book that's coming out and through the app and everything, like that's my intent, is just to make it accessible and affordable to everyone who has an iPhone or a Android.
Yeah. And your podcast as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever I do these interviews, I always want to bring about feelings and markers so that if people are listening to you, they can identify within. So I want to go back to this body image. When you felt at 12 years old, shitty about yourself, you're looking at yourself thinking, you know, I'm fat, I need to look different. Where did you learn that behavior?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I can remember having images of my girlfriends who had like these really like toned long legs, and thinking to myself, man, like I want to have toned long legs. And I always had more like thicker thighs and thicker calves and everything. And I just genetics, right? I wasn't fat, but I was like, I have to have those toned long legs like my friends. And so it was always something that was on my mind. And so that's like the first memory I have of this whole idea that my body's not acceptable the way that it is.
Yeah.
And so that, in conjunction with being a dancer and having to wear bodysuits and tights and tight clothing and costumes, et cetera, it was just a combination of all those things combined for me to just be at war with my body for most of my life until, you know, the last 6 years.
Yeah. If you're listening to this, I really want you to be thinking about, what is your relationship with your body? What does that look like? How do you feel when you look in the mirror? How do you feel when you put clothes on? And like Sam said, are you at war with your body, or is it this beautiful, you know, ecosystem within you? What were the catalyst? Obviously breath work, but how did you truly learn to love your body and honor your body as, you know, as time went on? And what does that relationship look like today? Do you still look in the mirror and think, oh shit, like I put on 5 pounds, my stomach's a little big today? What does that look like?
So to start with, I first had to accept the fact that I didn't like my body, you know, and I think I don't really believe in body positivity. I don't think it works, honestly. I did a video on this a couple of years ago that got a lot of hate, but it's just my truth. Like, I tried for so long to be positive about my body. Like, I love my body. I love my body. I love my body, on a bedrock of absolutely hating it. Like mindset work doesn't work. And you know what I'm saying? That's my philosophy anyway. And you know, that not everyone's going to agree with that, but from my experience and my journey, when I tried to convince myself that I loved my body, it never worked. And so I never really subscribed or really caught on to the whole body positivity thing, because I just don't think that's, you know, we can't positive our way through things that actually need sustainable change. And so I had to come to a place where I said, I am at war with my body, and I don't like my body, but I'm going to accept the fact that I don't like it. And that's the first place. Like, we just need truth. Like, being body positive is, for me at the time, wasn't truthful.
Right. There's too much resistance. Like, it wasn't, you're like, this is full of shit, I can't do this.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like in order for us to have sustainable change, we need traction. And truth creates traction. Like, we got to be truthful to have traction, so then we can transform. Oh, that sounds kind of cool. I've never said that before, but you know what I'm saying?
This is recorded, so you can write it down.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go back and figure out what I said. But the only thing I care about is sustainable transformation at the deepest level. You know, when I think of the clients that work with me or consume my content, I don't want them to just change while they're working with me, while I'm amping them up and giving them positive messages like rah, rah, rah. I want them to transform from the inside out. I want it to be the bottom up approach. So we have to be real with where we're at in all things. You know, if we want to change our financial situation, we can't pretend that we're a millionaire when we're $30,000 in debt. You know, we got to look at it for what it is and create a game plan. So the first step of this is accepting the fact that you don't love your body. And what that is going to do is it's going to bring you into a place of neutrality. The more that we just accept that, and then it's going to be this neutral relationship where, I don't hate my body anymore, but I definitely don't love it. And then we get to hang out in that place of neutrality. and just be okay with status quo. And then we get to slowly but surely build back this relationship that we've broken down for our whole life. Like I broke my relationship down for like 10 years of my life. So it took me a long time to rebuild that. And it's not a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. It's not a quick fix. It's just, it's constant showing up for yourself and doing the work. And when I say doing the work, I don't mean busy work. I mean, just really intentional focusing on being in your body, feeling your emotions, noticing the cellulite on your body and asking yourself, what's my relationship to this cellulite? What's my relationship to this 5 pounds that I've put on? And then slowly building and building and building to a place where we have body freedom. And we do feel like, okay, we can fluctuate 5 or 10 pounds and it's not going to mean anything. And I also, just a note here on the body positivity thing, like if you want to be in a body that feels light and free and energetic, you get to do that. And if that means losing weight, you get to also do that. And we got to treat it on a case by case situation and not blanket it like you have to love your body at every size. Like I just don't really. And a lot of my really good friends are in the like health at every size and all that kind of stuff. And they're very much, they so believe in that message. And I love the fact that they believe in that message because that's their journey, but that wasn't mine. And I truly believe that like I feel so good when I am really healthy and I'm using food for health and hunger and I'm moving my body in a way that feels good. And, I dance and I surf and I mountain bike and I hike and I want to feel strong while doing those things because that's what gives me life. And so, but that's me, that not everyone's going to be like that. And so really coming back to this, your other question of like, how do you feel now about your body? I know that every single time I have a negative thought about my body, it's never about my body. It's the projection onto the most obvious thing, which is my body. So it's a call and it's an invitation for me to go deeper and ask myself, what am I really hungry for? What am I truly at war with? Because it's not the 5 pounds that I've gained. There's something else there. And where can I develop a deeper relationship with myself? I'm human and I have the tools. So am I rid of body thoughts 24/7? No way. But what I know is where to direct my energy when those thoughts do come up, because I know it's not about my body.
Neat. So I want to give an example. So if you're looking at yourself and you're thinking, oh man, my legs look big today, or I put on that 5 pounds during COVID, then it's going,
COVID 5.
right? Yeah. It's going back to, okay, so what? Does this mean I'm not lovable? I'm not worthy? What are some other root causes that may be causing the projection on your body?
So for me, it comes back to comfort. So if I feel disconnected and uncomfortable and I'm blaming it on my body, I ask myself and I do like a little inventory. Where in my life am I feeling uncomfortable? Where am I not having that courageous conversation and it's creating, tension? Where in my life am I out of alignment? So I look at all facets of my life. I'll scan my relationship. Okay. What have I not said to him? What have I not communicated? Where am I holding resentment? I look at that. And then I look at my businesses and I'm like, okay, what team members are not aligned and I'm just too afraid to let them go? What projects am I working on that just are not inspiring me and creating like annoyance? And then I just like check in with my spiritual connection. Where am I not, being integral with my spiritual connection and showing up and doing the work and having this deep relationship? And then I look at like my inner child, like where am I not showing up for my inner child? And so I really just go through like the different areas of my life that are most important to me and ask myself, where am I out of integrity that's creating the discomfort that I'm projecting onto my body? Mm-hmm. Right. But when I didn't have those frames and I didn't think that it was about anything else other than my body growing up, I had no idea. So all of my focus and all of my attention went only on my body.
I love that breakdown. That's so beautiful and such a great line of questions that you can reflect on. Like take those questions, get out your journal tonight and really think about it. How is this tied to worthiness? Because you brought up something so key when you were explaining your story. And I know I've felt it too when we tie our worthiness to our accomplishments. How can we start reframing that and detaching our accomplishments and what we look like to our worth on this planet and who we are?
Yeah. So the good old worthiness wound, which we all have in some variety, right? What we need to ask our body is, what is the true emotional need? Now, when we have clarity on our true emotional need, then we won't be doing all of the things in order to try and fulfill that need. So let me break this down and give you a frame. So there's something called the triad that I use in a lot of my teachings. And so within us, within all of us, we have these parts of us that are frozen in time. So these parts that have not matured. So for instance, if we didn't get our needs met as a young child, that part of us would be frozen in time. And so it has the maturity level of, say, like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. And so when we get triggered, we can be thrown back in that timeline and we operate and try and fix the problem from the mentality and the maturity level of a 5-year-old. Does that make sense?
100%.
So if that 5-year-old has not gotten their needs met, then the strategy they're going to use to get their needs met, this is just an example, is the aggressor. So maybe there's people who are like super aggressive and they scream and they yell and they kick and they punch because they just need to get their needs met. You know, it's just a strategy that they've used. And so when they were a child and they didn't get their needs met easily, they went into the aggressor. Their needs were met because they made us think about it and they created a story and a connection. Well, when I scream and I yell and I get mad, then my needs are met. And we see this happening all the time, right? You just need to take a little scroll on Facebook to see people who have the aggressor protector, right? Trying to always be right. And that's just the way that that system has developed. And so when we can look at this and ask ourselves, what are all the parts of me that are not yet matured? Right? So we have like the warrior, the anxious one, the controller, the vulnerable one. We have all these like vulnerable different parts. And then they create strategies to get those needs met. But what we need to understand is what is the true emotional need of those parts of us that are frozen in time? And how can we proactively meet them so that we don't get into strategy and pattern and we can actually operate from truth? So a lot of the needs of these little parts that are frozen in time is safety, right? Other than food, water, and shelter, our fourth need is safety. We got to feel safe on a fundamental level. We need security. You know, we need love. We need validation. And so I met my need for validation by being a dancer, being an actress, and quite frankly, being an entrepreneur until I realized, how can I validate myself so that I don't need to do anything for that validation? And then the things we do are coming from a place of love and expansion and not trying to get something from the external world. Mm-hmm. So it's really about shifting the narrative and understanding how to meet our needs in a holistic, sustainable way so we don't have to constantly work to get our needs met.
Yeah. You mentioned also the right or wrong. And I know this is something you're super passionate about. We were talking a little bit earlier about kind of where you're at right now in the world that we're living in. And so many people, you know, virtue signaling and needing to be right or wrong. Can you talk a little bit more about how we can navigate what we're in right now, the right or wrong, the defining who we are and what we believe, and how you say, you know, that you can re-identify and you have the option to change your mind?
Yeah. One of my favorite mantras is I reserve the right to change my mind. And it's just great because I'm unshakable in my values, but I have flexibility in what I believe to be true. And what I believe to be true is about myself and the world. You know, my potential and what I believe to be true about my potential 5 years ago is very different than it is today because I've chosen to upgrade it. Now I went through some serious belief upgrading. I wouldn't be able to have, you know, the company that I have today if I didn't go through that. And this comes down to beliefs about the world. You know, if you're a single lady listening to this podcast, maybe you have beliefs around men or dating or relationships that need to be upgraded in order to create a new reality. And so I think sometimes when we get into like opposition with other people because we have separate beliefs, it's a shame because we're all at such a different level of our evolution and expansion. And when we can have more grace and compassion for people and just go, okay, you choose to believe that and I choose to believe this, and we can still have a connection and still be friends. I think it's so healthy. But we live in a world now where there's not much room for connection when we have opposing beliefs, and it's crazy. I think like at the time of recording this podcast, it's especially relevant, you know, living in the States and seeing all this, you know, the drives for separation in our world right now is just really crazy. It's really crazy.
It's like we have to pick a team, and you don't have to pick a team.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Yeah. And that's always what I try to talk about, even within our community, is just how do we actually learn to accept one another
Mm,
free of judgment, because we're allowed to be who we want to be, and
mm.
allow other people to be who they want to be too, you know?
Some of my best friends, we have very different beliefs about many things. And
Yeah.
it's so great because then we can get in conversation and go like, I'm so curious why you believe that. Like, educate me. I want to
Yeah.
learn. I want to research, you
Yeah.
know?
It's
Yeah.
really coming at it from a place of curiosity, right? It's like, tell me more about you. What are your experiences, and what has brought you to that belief right now, so that you can grow together.
Exactly. Yeah. It's beautiful when we can
Yeah.
do that. So yeah, I guess my hope for the world is just us having so much more grace with each other
Hmm.
and understanding and just knowing that there's no such thing as adults. We're all just grown up children trying to get our needs met. And so when we know that, and we can look a layer underneath the aggressor, like when I see these diatribes on Facebook, people screaming at each other, I'm like, okay, I'm like, this person is trying to get their needs met. So underneath, like, anger is a secondary emotion. Underneath that is just fear. They're just worried. They're just scared.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, how can we view that individual as like a scared child versus an adult that's being aggressive? It's
Yeah.
just an interesting thing.
Yeah. But then in order to be more graceful with each other, we have to first be
Oh
graceful.
God, it's where it all starts.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
we it a lot of people will ask me, Sam, the world's so crazy right now. Like, what should I do to help? I'm like, yo, just start at home.
Yeah.
Like, really go within and really heal your body. And when I say heal your body, I mean like really going into these parts and like giving yourself the medicine that you didn't receive as a child, and reparenting yourself and developing that rock solid connection with yourself. Because when you do that, then you're resourced. And when you're resourced, you can go into the world from a place of clarity, intuition, and critical thinking, and really support. And I think just the vibration of you connecting to yourself is going to completely up level the planet. So we don't necessarily need to get into this overperforming, overdoing stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like, take action from a place of alignment is what I always say. And I think 2020 has been this like weird frigging year of people just like taking action out of alignment because they just need to take action and do something, because or else they're going to look bad. It's been crazy.
I know. I
It's been
know.
a dumpster fire, man. It's been so insane. It's like that doesn't help at all. Like,
Yeah.
like the world needs our alignments. The world needs like us to come into our bodies and just really follow our intuitions and attune to the next thing. Yeah.
This is something I'm so passionate about, and I would love to know your opinion, because how would you define the difference between fear and intuition? Because I see this in my clients and in people all the time when they think, "Oh, I'm acting from intuition," and they're not. They're actually acting from fear.
Mm, yeah, I see it all the time too.
Yeah.
It's a sensation. There's a very distinct difference in the frequency of the sensation. So my intuition is rock solid. It's so clear. There's no negotiation. There's no like buzzy energy. When I'm operating from fear, it feels like scarcity. It feels like I gotta just do this now. Blah, 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 blah. It's like this chaos. Like the energetic quality is chaos versus the energetic quality of my intuition is just grounded.
Mm.
And so this is why I will take longer to make decisions on things. And this is why when someone asks me a question, I'm like, I'll get back to you. I'm not going to give you an answer right now, because if I give you an answer, it's going to come from my head and not my heart, not my intuition. And so it's the way that I explain this is like fear is just, it's like this chaotic vibration, whereas the intuition is just this complete clarity,
Mm.
complete clarity.
Neat. Yeah, even when, let's say I coach people on business, it's so interesting because they'll say, it doesn't feel right. I shouldn't do this. But it's really coming from a fear of failure, or a fear, whatever, they're
Mhm.
just insecure or something, right? So I feel like it's also questioning the intuition. Where is this coming from? Where did I learn this? What else is going on? And almost assuming that your intuition is lying to you, just so you can question it a little bit more.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is why I'm so obsessed with breath work, is because breath work gives us the ability to clear the emotionality and get right down to the source very quickly.
Yeah.
So if I'm toggling with that, is this fear, is this intuition? It's like, I'll do breath and then I'm like, okay, this is so clear now. And when we try and filter our decisions through the lens of the mind, it's very challenging to do that. But when we breathe it out, clear the mind, get into the body, or get into the pocket, which is what I call that intuitive place, that place of clarity. It's like we're in the pocket, it's so clear, everything just makes more sense.
So if somebody is curious and wanting to get into breath work, because it isn't mainstream yet, what are some first steps how does somebody start?
So I always say start really small. My first breathwork experience, as I mentioned, was 3 hours, and I was like, whoa, that was intense. But I always invite people to start really small, and even with like 1, 2, 3 minutes a day is really powerful. We have an app coming out soon, so you'll be able to get that on the App Store soon, and you can, the little, they're called Take a Breathers, and they're just small little breathworks. But even just like if someone's never done breathwork, a minute a day. There's free audios on our at pausebreathwork.com as well if you want a longer journey, but even just a minute a day of just like, it's called the Halo Active. So it's in through the nose and out through the mouth with like a force and intent on both the inhale and the exhale. So even just a minute of that while taking a deep breath at the end and holding, it just shifts your energy so quickly.
And is there a specific pattern that they should be doing when they're breathing in through their nose and out through their mouth?
So that's one of them. Is called the Halo Active. It depends on the frequency. It depends on the type of journey they want to go on. There's more intense breath patterns. One of them is called the Tri-Active breath, which is 2 breaths in, 1 breath out, only through the mouth, like. But that's more of an intense one. So for people who are just wanting to try breath work out for the first time, I would say start with the Halo Active, in through the nose, out through the mouth, a minute, 2 minutes, and just see how you feel.
Cool. And what other recommendations would you offer people who are listening to this and thinking, I have a lot of healing to do. I want to heal. I don't like the way I feel. Where do I start?
I always start with the end in mind. Always, with anything that I do, whether it's my relationship, business, trip, whatever it is. So really getting clear on what is it that you desire? What is it that you desire? What does healing look like for you? Knowing that we're never truly healed. We will be on this journey until the day that we die, healing, peeling away layers, healing our wounds, doing the work, doing the parts work like we talked about in this episode. So the first step is just really getting clear on what does it look like? Like when I was going through my eating disorder, it's like, what does it look like when I can wake up every single morning and use food for health and hunger? What does it look like when I can do a 20-minute workout and be satisfied versus a 2-hour workout? What does it look like for me to go to a restaurant with the people that I love and not scan the menu and count calories beforehand? And so I just really got so clear and created the exact life that I wanted. What does the business look like? What's the bank account look like? And so just getting so super clear of like, what place do I want to be at? And when you're creating this, always do it from the vibration of expansion and knowing that whatever you desire, you deserve. And I think that's a really important piece that I just want everyone to really get. Like, whatever you want in this life, you get to have it. The timeline will be completely off, right? There's things that you're going to have way quicker and there's things that are going to take way longer. Yeah. But if you desire it, you get to bring it into the world.
Yeah. Since we're always healing and evolving, would you mind sharing what is something you're healing right now?
I am currently in the process. So this is, okay, we're just going to go here.
Yeah.
So I have had this like really interesting reaction in this life to certain situations in public. Where I'll be in public and my body will literally go into terror. Like I am so terrified. I'm so freaking I can barely breathe. And I'll be with Eric, who's like 6'3" and massive and could protect me with anything. But I will be panicking, thinking that I'm going to die.
Wow.
And so for years now, I'm like, Mom, like what has frigging happened? Like what happened in my life? Like, did you leave me in a park? Like what the actual F is going on? She's like, Sam, she's like, nothing has happened. And so I've been like doing like deep dives and trying to figure this out because it's so debilitating. And so a few weeks ago, I worked with this angel channeler who can like look at all your past lives. And past lives, by the way, is something I so was not into until like 2 years ago. And so I asked him this question. I was like, I experience this terror in public settings sometimes when I'm completely safe or there is no danger. It'll just hit me all of a sudden for no reason. My mind has no idea. And so I asked him, he was channeling this Emmanuel, this guide.
Yeah.
And I learned that in the 1400s, I was living in Italy and I was a slave and I was killed on the streets. And so this thing only happens when I'm on the street, which is just so insane to me. And I'm like, oh, so it wasn't from this life, it was from a past life. So that is the piece that I'm working on right now, because it's just so fascinating to me. There's like, I feel a felt sense of safety the majority of this human experience, but there's times where I go into complete terror and trauma, and I completely disassociate, and it's the craziest thing.
Wow. That's so interesting. And I love your commitment to just think like, okay, what is this? What, like, this is not
Fascinating to me. It's
Yeah.
fascinating because I'm like, there's literally nothing to be scared of right now.
Yeah.
And so it's this interesting piece that I've been working for a long time. And I thought, I'm like, oh, it's because, maybe my parents got a divorce, or I don't know. I used to watch like Unsolved Mysteries with my brother when I was younger. So I don't know. That's a program from Canada.
Yeah.
You're from Canada, right?
Oh, I'm in Canada too, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I was like, is that it? And turns out it's not. It's from the 1400s. So it's totally not my mom's fault. She wasn't even alive.
Wow. It's so interesting. It's the same with like generational wounds too, that are, passed down from, generations, obviously. And so we sometimes will react and we have no idea where it's coming from, because our grandmother or great grandmother experiences one thing and it's a belief that's just passed down in our family.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like our job in this life is just to do the work to heal all the trauma from our lineage. Whew.
Yeah, I know, right?
What a job. That's a tall order.
Exactly right. But then it stops, hopefully, with us, right? And we don't pass it on to if we decide to have children. Where can people follow you and find out more about your journey and breath work and everything you have to offer?
So my book is coming out this month, which is super exciting, on September 29th. And it's called Hungry for Happiness, which is my whole journey. It's kind of like a mixture of my journey and my story, but also very tangible tools and exercises for people to heal. So you can get that at hungryforhappiness.com/book. My podcast, of course, we launch an episode weekly, which is super fun. I love doing that. I'm very active on Instagram. So at Samantha Skelly on Instagram. And then all the breathwork stuff lives at pausebreathwork.com. But if you go to my Instagram, you'll be able to see all the
Awesome. And I know you have a challenge too, a 21-day challenge on your page.
A 21-day meditation. Yeah. So when you pre-order the book, you'll gain access to my 21-day meditation series for free. So that's my food and body meditation series. So as you go through the book, you can also do the meditations as well.
Cool. It's so beautiful. Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your story and allowing people to learn and evolve through your story, and I love how you just say, this is my truth. I'm going to teach you what helped me and where I'm coming from. So if, you're listening to this, hopefully something resonated with you. And if it did, awesome. And if not, that's okay too. We really, I think Sam and I are both in alignment in saying that we just want you to connect to the truth of who you are and what's right for you and find your alignment,
100%.
Yeah.
I think the more we can just just lead by example and not convince people to change their beliefs, but just truly be an embodiment of what we believe. That's like a beautiful place to be in.
So awesome. Do you have any other message or anything else you want to say before we finish up?
The biggest thing is just knowing that your body's the healer. You know exactly what to do. And so really getting into a place of just like surrendering and letting the body do the work and just feeling to heal. And through breath work and through embodiment exercises and through just changing our relationship to pain, we can really ascend and grow. So yeah.
So cool. Well, dive in, ladies, gentlemen, whoever's listening. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with Sam and I through this little chat, and go reach out, follow Sam. And if you want to know more about breathwork, you can check out her app or her website. So have a great day. Thank you for watching and for taking the time to heal you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here on this planet.
See you later.
See ya. Okay, so now we'll stop this recording.